Welcome to the Hazard Communication Standard 2012, also known as HazCom 2012 training module. Let's first talk about HazCom. HazCom is an OSHA regulation. It became law in 1983. It covers 43 plus million U.S. workers, over 5 million workplaces, over 880,000 chemicals. It's also known as the Employees' Right to Know program. Now let's talk about the Globally Harmonized System, the GHS. GHS is the Global Harmonized System of Classification and Labeling of Chemicals. It was mandated in 1992. It's a common and coherent global approach, with definitions and hazards and classifications all being the same. Consistent communication on labels and safety data sheets. HazCom 2012 is written as a modification to the existing standard. OSHA adopted the GHS system of hazard classification, labeling of chemicals, and safety data sheets into the existing HazCom standard in March 2012. The final rule went into effect on May 25, 2012. Transition to the GHS format and content. Provisions of the HCS standard 1983. It had to be a written program, employee information and training, hazard determination, material safety data sheets, labeling and warnings, and record keeping. The OSHA HCS alignment with GHS, it maintains the HCS framework, enhances protection, and the major changes is chemical classification, safety data sheets, and labels. So let's talk about the major changes. The classification, we're going to reclassify physical, health, and environmental standards to the new GHS standard. When it comes to labeling, we're going to apply new hazards and symbols to reclassifications. And from the MSDS to the SDS, there's going to be a mandatory 16-section format with new required data elements and expanded information. On your own, read the GHS Chemical Classifications. Now let's talk about the new label requirements on shipping containers. As you can see, there's a product identifier, the name and address of the chemical manufacturer, importer, or responsible party, the signal word, hazard statements, pictograms with red borders for all labels and empty borders are not permitted, and there's also precautionary statements. Now take a look at the HCS pictograms and hazards. There are 9. There's the health hazard, the flame, the exclamation mark, the gas cylinder, corrosion, exploding bomb, flame over circle, environment, and skull and crossbones. Now the GHS hazard categories and signal words and hazard statements. There are 4 categories. And the first category, the signal word is danger, and the hazard statement is extremely flammable. Category 2, signal word is danger, and the hazard statement is highly flammable. Category 3, signal word is a warning, and the hazard statement is flammable. And Category 4, the signal word is warning, and the hazard statement is combustible. Train on both systems during transition. Remember, the current OSHA template is identity of hazardous chemicals, hazard warnings, and contact information of manufacturer, importer, or responsible party. The GHS template is the product identifier, the pictograms, the signal word, precautionary statements, hazardous statements, supplemental information, and supplier identification. Below is an example of the difference between the MSDS in 1983 versus the SDS of 2012. As you can see, the SDS, the Section 2 hazard identification, has the GHS classification, the the pictograms, the signal word, the hazard statement, and precautionary statement. On your own, read the difference between the MSDS 1983 versus the SDS of 2012. Now let's review the HAZCOM 2012 highlights. OSHA adopted the GHS system of hazard classification and labeling of chemicals into the existing HAZCOM standard in March 2012. It is now known as the HAZCOM 2012. The key difference between HAZCOM and GHS is the HAZCOM is the employee right to know, and the GHS is the employee right to understand.